When my brother left his crying newborn baby on my doorstep in the middle of a freezing night, my mother didn't help me. Instead, she pointed a finger at my face and said, "He's your brother's mistake, but it's your responsibility to raise him now." Everyone in my family treated me like an unpaid nanny, abandoning us completely. For 11 years, I gave up my dreams, my savings, and my youth to raise that little boy as my own. But then, out of nowhere, my brother and mother sued me for full custody, maliciously claiming I had brainwashed the child and kept them apart. They thought they were going to destroy my life and take my son away. At the final custody hearing, their smiles vanished when I handed the judge a sealed folder. His eyes widened in absolute shock. He looked at them, then asked me, "Do they even know what you have?" I just nodded. "My name is Clare Bennett, and I am 27 years old. 6 years ago, when I was a naive 21-year-old just trying to figure out my own future, my life changed forever on a freezing November night. A relentless storm was battering the windows of my small apartment, the thunder shaking the very foundation of the building. I was just about to turn off the lights and head to bed when a sharp, frantic pounding echoed from my front door. When I opened it, the bitter wind rushed past me, but there was no one standing there. Instead, my eyes dropped to the cold concrete porch where a plastic laundry basket sat wrapped in a thin, soaked blanket. Inside, it was a tiny, shivering newborn baby, his face bright red as he screamed at the top of his lungs. Tucked into the side of the blanket was a diaper bag and a hurried, handwritten note from my older brother, Austin. It simply read, "I can't handle this. He's yours now." Panicked and trembling, I immediately called my mother, begging her to come over and help me figure out what to do. But when she arrived, she didn't offer comfort or a solution. She looked down at the crying baby, then pointed a cold, harsh finger directly at my face. Protecting her precious golden child Austin like she always did, she said, "He's your brother's mistake, but it's your responsibility to raise him now. Don't you dare ruin Austin's future over this." With those words, she turned around, leaving me entirely alone with a child who had no one else in the world. For the next 11 years, my life became a blur of endless sacrifice, exhausting routines, and complete isolation. While other 20-something girls were going to college, dating, and building their careers, I was awake at 3 in the morning, rocking a colicky baby and praying I'd have enough money for his next box of formula. I had to give up my dreams of finishing my degree and immediately took on 2 grueling jobs, working as a receptionist by day and scanning items at a grocery warehouse by night, just to afford Leo's basic daycare, clothing, and unexpected medical needs. Every single milestone in Leo's life was witnessed by me and me alone. I was the one who stayed up through his terrifying fevers, the one who cheered the loudest at his first kindergarten orientation, and the one who held him tight when he asked why he didn't have a normal mom and dad. Meanwhile, Austin was living a completely carefree, luxurious life, traveling the world and launching a high-end clothing brand, heavily funded by our mother's savings. During those entire 11 years, neither Austin nor my mother sent a single dollar to help us. They never called on his birthdays, never sent a Christmas card, and never once drove down to see how the boy was growing. To them, Leo was an inconvenient ghost from a past they wanted to forget. They had completely erased themselves from his existence, never realizing that their cruel abandonment had only forged an unbreakable, permanent bond between me and my son. Then, just after Leo turned 11, the illusion of our peaceful life shattered. Out of nowhere, Austin returned, but he wasn't alone. He was now married to Bianca, a wealthy heiress from a prominent family who desperately wanted a ready-made family to parade around her high society circles. Backed aggressively by my mother, they unexpectedly showed up at my house on a Saturday afternoon, demanding that I hand Leo over immediately. When I fiercely refused to give up the 11-year-old boy who didn't even know their faces, Austin's fake smile turned into a venomous sneer, and he threatened to ruin me legally. I couldn't understand this sudden, frantic obsession with a child they had ignored for over a decade until I secretly overheard my mother talking on the phone in my hallway. The family's real, sinister motivation had absolutely nothing to do with parental love. A massive, multi-million-dollar trust fund left by our late grandfather was about to mature in a matter of weeks. The strict legal terms of the inheritance stated that the funds could only be unlocked and managed by the biological parent who held full, legal custody of the firstborn grandchild, which was Leo. Austin was drowning in new business debts, and he desperately needed my son to act as his multi-million-dollar key. They thought they could just walk in, tear my world apart, and steal my boy for a payday. But they had no idea how hard I was willing to fight to protect him. Exactly 3 days later, the cold reality of their greed arrived in the form of an official legal ambush. A process server knocked on my door and handed me thick, intimidating court papers. Austin and my mother hadn't just filed a basic claim. They had hired an expensive, notoriously aggressive family law firm in the city to sue me for full, immediate custody of Leo. As I read through the fabricated legal documents with trembling hands, my blood ran cold. In the papers, they painted a completely distorted, malicious narrative. They explicitly characterized me as an unstable, deeply vindictive aunt who had essentially kidnapped Leo as an infant, kept him completely isolated from his biological family, and actively brainwashed him to hate his own father. They even included a fraudulent affidavit from my mother, claiming she had tried to visit Leo for years, but that I had threatened her and barred her from the property. When I took the documents to a local legal aid attorney, he read through them, sighed heavily, and looked at me with genuine pity. He begged me to prepare myself for a brutal, uphill losing battle. He explained that because Austin now had massive financial backing from his new wife's family, their legal team had the resources to drag the case out for years, filing motion after motion until I was completely bankrupt and forced to surrender my son. I left his office feeling utterly crushed, suffocated by the terrifying weight of their lies. With despair threatening to consume me, I sat in my quiet living room, staring at the predatory court documents. Suddenly, a forgotten memory flashed through my mind. I remembered an old, sealed envelope my late father had secretly handed to me right before he passed away in the hospital, whispering that I should keep it safe and open it only if my mother and Austin ever tried to destroy me. The very next morning, I rushed to the bank and unlocked my safety deposit box to retrieve that hidden envelope. When I opened the thick folder inside, my heart pounded wildly against my ribs. It was an absolute goldmine of evidence that my father had quietly and meticulously compiled before his death, knowing exactly how toxic and ruthless his wife and son truly were. The folder contains old, saved text messages, printed emails, and even audio transcripts from the exact night Leo was abandoned on my doorstep. Most crucially, there was a signed private contract drafted by my father and signed by Austin himself. It explicitly proved that Austin had willingly surrendered all parental intentions and rights to Leo in exchange for my mother using her savings to pay off his massive early gambling and business debts. My father had documented everything, exposing their long history of financial fraud and explicit child abandonment. Holding those pages, the suffocating fear vanished, replaced by a fierce, burning clarity. They thought they had cornered a helpless victim, but my father had given me the ultimate weapon to destroy their lies. The day of the final custody hearing arrived, and the air inside the courtroom felt thick with tension. Austin and my mother sat confidently on the opposite side of the aisle, flanked by their expensive legal team. They wore smug, arrogant smiles, occasionally whispering to each other and casting mocking glances in my direction. They genuinely believed that their wealth and fabricated lies were about to secure them a multi-million-dollar victory. When the proceedings began, their aggressive lawyer stepped forward and confidently presented their distorted narrative, painting me as a malicious, unstable gatekeeper who had stolen Leo away from a loving father. When it was finally my turn to speak, I didn't shake or cry. I stood up perfectly calm, walked directly toward the bench, and handed the judge the sealed folder my father had left for me. The courtroom went dead silent as the judge opened it and began reading. Within seconds, the smug look vanished from the faces of my brother and mother. The judge's entire demeanor shifted drastically. His face grew incredibly stern, and his eyes widened in absolute shock as he reviewed the undeniable proof of explicit child abandonment, extortion, and financial fraud. He slowly lowered the papers, stared directly at Austin and my mother with utter disgust, and then turned his gaze to me. In a voice that echoed through the silent room, he asked the pivotal question, "Do they even know what you have?" I just stood there, looked straight into the panicked eyes of my brother, and calmly nodded. Suddenly, the entire room froze. Austin's expensive lawyer frantically reached for the documents, his face turning completely pale as he realized their aggressive legal ambush had just blown up in their faces. The judge didn't waste a single moment. He banged his gavel down with a resounding crack that shattered the tense silence of the room. Looking directly at Austin and my mother, he fiercely scolded them for attempting to perpetrate an absolute fraud upon the court. He immediately dismissed the custody case with prejudice, ensuring they could never bring this nightmare to my doorstep again. Furthermore, the judge officially stripped Austin of any future parental rights and ordered a formal state investigation into their fraudulent claims and financial extortion. The fallout from that courtroom showdown was swift and devastating for them. Austin's wealthy wife, Bianca, filed for a rapid divorce the very next week upon learning that he was a manipulative fraud who had abandoned his own flesh and blood for money. Stripped of her family's financial backing and drowning in massive legal fees, Austin's high-end clothing brand collapsed into bankruptcy within a month. My mother fared no better. Her reputation in our community was utterly ruined, and she was forced to sell her luxury home just to pay off the aggressive legal team she had hired to destroy me. 11 long years of silent suffering and tireless sacrifice had finally culminated in absolute justice. That evening, I sat on the porch of our quiet home, watching 11-year-old Leo laugh as he kicked a soccer ball around the yard, completely safe and secure. The heavy burden I had carried for over a decade had finally lifted. Now, I am curious about all of you who are listening to my story today. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have fought back the same way? Comment your thoughts below, and thank you for watching until the very end.